Namaste, Jai Mahadev. Today we are going to discuss the difference in Hatha Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Ashtanga Vinyasa, Iyengar Yoga. So there is a lot of confusion between these terms, and a lot of people, when they come to inquire about we want to do Ashtanga Yoga or we want to do Hatha Yoga, they do not know what does that mean. So this session is just about explaining these different terms. Okay. So let's start with Ashtanga Yoga. Whenever you say Ashtanga Yoga, that is called as classical Ashtanga Yoga by sage Patanjali. Okay. So it is also called as Patanjali Yoga or Raja Yoga. Why Raja Yoga? Because it is Raja Yoga, the kingly yoga, which takes you to the Samadhi state, and ultimately that leads you to the liberation or Kaivalya, and that is why it is called as Raja Yoga. So this Ashtanga Yoga, which Patanjali wrote more than 2000 years back, somewhere around 200 BC we can say, is popularly known as Ashtanga Yoga because obviously it has 8 limbs, Ashtangas, which you all know, but it doesn't mention much about asanas, pranayamas, bandhas, mudras, etc. In 195/196 sutras, there are only 3 sutras on asanas. 2 are definitions and 1 is benefit. So Patanjali has more emphasis on mental practices, internal practices, how to achieve samadhi and what you get the benefits out of that samadhi or the siddhis, and then ultimately how you get to Kaivalyavastha. That is Ashtanga Yoga. That's our baseline for today's discussion. Now we get into what is Vinyasa, what is Ashtanga Vinyasa, etc. Now remember, Patanjali is classical yoga which he compiled around 2000 years back. Yoga was there before that as well, almost 5000 to 10,000 years old the yoga is. So what was that yoga then? So that is what we call Hatha Yogic practices, even the Raja Yogic practices, but the practices which were compiled by Patanjali, and he named it as Ashtanga Yoga, and his assumption was that you already know the physical practices and then come and I will teach you the real Raja Yoga now. Coming to Vinyasa, somewhere around 1900 there was this person called as T. Krishnamacharya. He was a renowned yogi, Ayurvedic healer, and he was a yoga trainer at Mysore Palace. He was a great person, very well known yogi. So what he was doing is he was giving these yogic trainings and he was training the warriors, the soldiers of the palace. And that is when the need arose, like for the warriors the yoga has to be different, it has to be dynamic, it has to have a lot of strength, it has to have power, and that is when he designed this special yoga called Vinyasa for these people and that is why it has got a lot of dynamic practices. Okay, so that is what is called as Vinyasa or Vinikrama Yoga. Now Krishnamacharya had 2 very famous disciples, one K. Pattabhi Jois and second B.K.S. Iyengar. So what Pattabhi Jois did is he started teaching these practices, these dynamic practices, but he made certain modifications into it and he called it as Ashtanga Vinyasa. Okay, so Ashtanga Vinyasa is basically the Pattabhi Jois style yoga where there are different kind of asanas, or they are called as primary series, intermediate series, advanced series. There are 6 series and you are supposed to practice specifically that particular series. Okay, that is called as Ashtanga Vinyasa. So we saw Vinyasa by T. Krishnamacharya, Ashtanga Vinyasa, more popularly known as Ashtanga today, that is the Ashtanga Vinyasa. Now coming to B.K.S. Iyengar, who was also disciple of Krishnamacharya ji, he started teaching similar practices, same fashion, but then slowly he modified those and he brought into different props like ropes, belts, blocks, pillows, and different props. And this form of yoga is popularly known as Iyengar yoga today. Okay, So we saw what is original Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga, Vinyasa, Ashtanga Vinyasa. Now let's come to Hatha Yoga. So this Hatha Yoga, as I said, is very old. It is more than 5,000 to 10,000 years old. But the books on Hatha Yoga were written more by Natha yogis somewhere around 1600, 1700 century onwards. Okay, so you get all the textbooks that you today find are not, before Patanjali's time, they are after Patanjali's time, and that is why the lineage is more of Natha yogi lineage. There is some relationship with Tantra yoga as well, but that today's Hatha Yoga is more of the yoga popularized by these Natha yogis like Swami Swatmarama and Gheranda and all that. Okay, so the popular books, if you look at Hatha Yoga, is Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Gheran Samhita, Goraksha Shatakam, Hatha Ratnavali, etc. Shiva Samhita. There are many textbooks, and these textbooks have more emphasis on Shuddhi Kriyas, the asanas, pranayama, bandhas, mudras, and all the physical practices. But they also mention about the internal practices, the dharana, dhyana, samadhi as well. But there is more emphasis on these physical preparatory practices to achieve the Raja Yoga. As a matter of fact, the goal of Hatha Yoga is to achieve Raja Yoga. That's what Swami Swatmarama very clearly says. He says there is no use of Hatha Yoga if you are not working towards Raja Yoga. Okay, so that is Hatha Yoga, basically all the asanas and physical practices. And today's all the practices like your Ashtanga Vinyasa, the Iyengar Yoga, or the different styles that you have, hot yoga that is called as, or the Bikram yoga, power yoga. These are all the branches of Hatha Yoga. Basic difference, you can say that Hatha Yoga is basically the static practice, where also you do one asana and then you pause and then you do second asana and then third asana with a gap in between. In Vinyasa, they are like sequences, they are like flows. There you connect the flow with your breath, the asana, the movement with your breath, and you do that complete flow. So that is the dynamic practice which is there in the Ashtanga Vinyasa. Hatha is like a static practice, one asana at a time. So I hope this helps the differentiation, and so thank you. Jai Mahadev.